Note the opinions expressed by contributors are not necessarily those of the CUSJ, but they might be. And we always want to hear all kinds of diverse opinions. And so welcome to the Let's Connect series of interactive meetings. We try to have it on the fourth Saturday of the month. So if you can sort of keep track of that. And if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, at the end of the presentation, we will have the place where to do it, but it is on CUSJ.org, and you go to Just News, and that is where you can subscribe. So today's, my name is Ellen Papenburg. I'm the media person and secretary of the CUSJ, and Jim Sanes, who is my other half, is the president, and Gary Campbell is the treasurer, and we have more Irene and Christina are board members. Irene is involved with the UU Animal Ministry to keep track of the rights of animals, because we think all beings should be considered in our justice efforts. Today's meeting is featuring the Ottawa Ajashki Garden Project with Aboriginal leader Kayoki Whiteduck. Welcome, Kayoki, who is the Ajashki gardener. So if you have any topics, as for to call us or write us at cusjmedia@gmail.com. So thank you for the co-hosts who are helping me keeping this streamlined. Okay, land acknowledgement. We respectfully recognize and acknowledge the relationship that the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis across Canada have with the land all Canadians live on and enjoy. This acknowledgement should only be a first step in eventually approaching restoring unceded land to the Indigenous nation or nations that previously had sovereignty over these lands. Now, I would invite people to share their current activities of the social justice committees. Okay, Doug, please go ahead.
I'm a member of the Reconciliation Working Group at First Toronto. For the past several years, we have partnered with Thunder Woman Healing Lodge. It is a Indigenous woman-owned and operated healing lodge currently under construction on Kingston Road near Birchmount. It's a fabulous thing. It's intended for women exiting Canada's prison system. There are far, far too many Black and Indigenous people in Canadian prisons. They're there for the crime of poverty, most of them. And so we have been assisting them with fundraising. Patty Pettigrew, thank you, Kate, is their leader. She speaks every year at First, and we have a fundraising month for Thunder Woman. So
great.
It's a wonderful thing to be part of.
Great, thank you, Doug. That is very inspiring too. And then Patty, please.
Hi, I come to you from the First Unitarian Church of Victoria in BC. And
welcome.
Thank you. And I also attend the Capital Church. We are fortunate enough to have two UU churches, and we kind of share information, even though we have two different structures. At the First Unitarian Church, we have what we call a Greater Victoria Acting Together core team. We disbanded our social justice committee and joined Greater Victoria Acting Together. It is an umbrella group of about 70,000 people who belong to churches, unions, clubs, universities, whatever organization would like to join, that we pay dues. And my core team is about 6 very active people at the church. Many of us have taken additional training through IAF. And what some of our successes have been, Vancouver also has a group like this. I think Calgary has a group like this. I don't see anybody from Vancouver or Calgary to help me with that. So what we do is band together with a lot more weight behind our pleas when we go to talk to our MPs, when we go to talk to our different legislators, or when we talk in any position. We go to municipal meetings, we go places. Not everyone goes to everything, of course, right? Because we can't. But we can say we have 70,000 votes behind our perspective. We've really rallied on housing. I don't know if it's like where I am, where you are, but our housing prices are through the roof, literally. And the number of people that are homeless on our streets or unhoused on our streets are disproportionately people of color, Indigenous and Black folks, disproportionately male, and with mental illness or addiction problems. There have been many things where we've had successes working with this. We've gotten BC, we've helped to get BC as a province to sign up for more federal aid, because even if the feds offer it, if we don't apply for it, we don't get it. We've helped, like the newest success this week is we had a little tiny homes village made out of containers that was funded until last September, and the funding ran out. And now I know I should stop. But anyway, right now, today, they have refunded it through next September because they had 30 individual homes with 3 staff on all the time, 24/7, to help people.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing all that. It's also very inspiring. And thank you very much, Pat. In the series Let's Connect to UU Social Justice, our next speaker is Kayoki Whiteduck, the Ajashki Garden, who will explain the relationship with UUs in Ottawa and the unceded land on which the congregation is located. There will be time for questions after the presentation. And Gary, our CUSJ treasurer and Ottawa UU member, will now introduce the speaker. So take it away, Gary.
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Kayoki Whiteduck is an Algonquin Anishinaabe farmer from Kitigan, Zibi, in Quebec, who now operates a farm in Fairlandton, Quebec. His passion about plants, gardening, herbalism, food security, and the environment. In 2016, he started a business called Kayoki, where he grows and sells herbal teas. Kayoki was part of the first cohort of the Canadian Agriculture Youth Council and was the only Indigenous member at that time. He is the head of Ajashki Food Security and Climate Change Learning Center in Ottawa, where he partnered with the First Unitarian Congregation of Ottawa to teach youth about the growing and producing of food, Indigenous culture, and climate change. And his activism is also teaching some of us older folk as well. So over to you, Kayoki.
Perfect. Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you, Gary, for the introduction. So hello everybody. My name's Kayoki Whiteduck. And yeah, today I'm going to talk a bit about the Ajashki Food Security and Climate Change Learning Center, a project that I have partnered with First U Ottawa to do. So yeah, that's our full name, but we always just call it Ajashki for short. So in this first, I prepared a slideshow presentation because pictures say 1,000 words, and I can really show you guys what we do over there with all the pictures that I've chosen. So the first picture you see here is of our logo. So we're a food security and climate change learning center, and this is what the logo depicts. The left-hand side of the logo is a garden and a tree bearing fruit. The right-hand side is the tree that's on fire, symbolizing climate change. The word Ajashki itself is an Algonquin word that means mud or soil. Because when you're talking about food security or climate change, the solutions for both start with the soil. So that's why I chose that name for this project. So yeah, let's begin. Oh, okay. So yeah, how it started. So basically, back in 2019, there were some members of First U Ottawa who had a sharing circle with an elder from my community named Verna McGregor. And with the sharing circle, they asked what they can do in the spirit of reconciliation. And this elder suggested to do an Indigenous Learning Center. Now, this seemed like a really huge step, so they decided to start with something smaller, and they came up with the food security project. So they just started figuring out how they can do this, and then eventually they got in contact with me through my uncle, as I'm somebody who works in agriculture and horticulture. And they got into contact with me, and then over the beginning years of the pandemic, 2020, we started meeting weekly to decide exactly what this food security project would look like. And then in early 2021, Ajashki was born. So the picture you see here is of where our garden is now, but this is before we had planted any of our gardens. So back when we were first starting out. And I'll show you some pictures of what it looks like further on in this presentation. So what we do, basically, yeah, so we're a food security project. So we teach our participants how to grow food, how to harvest food, how to cook food, basically anything around food and gardening, as well as we also teach about climate change. So on the left there, you can see a picture of me with one of the future food warriors, and I believe I was showing them how to weed a garden. And then you can see in the right some more pictures of our garden, bed of kale and some other stuff that we have. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do. We actually kind of do a lot of stuff, but for purposes of time, I'll stick to the basics or the fundamentals. So yeah, basically what we do is we take our participants who are called Future Food Warriors. So Future Food Warriors is a name that I kind of came up with to describe what we're hoping to teach our participants. Basically, once they come to our program, we're hoping that they'll be knowledgeable enough to go out in the world and be able to grow their own food or teach other people how to grow food. So this is why I came up with that name. But our program is really designed around the Future Food Warriors. We ask them what they want to grow, and then we teach them how to grow it. All the food we produce in the garden, the first dibs go to them, and then we do other stuff with the food that I'll get to in a minute. But yeah, what's important is that the program of Ajashki is centered around the needs of the Future Food Warriors. So in the picture on the left, you can see one of our participants with a big armful of greens that they've harvested. And then on the right, you can see a picture of one of our Future Food Warriors planting a shade garden, which again, I'll talk to you more about in a minute. So yeah, we usually in the spring is where we do our recruitment. And this poster that you see here is our recruitment poster. So we primarily have Indigenous youth. But we do have one kind of full-time non-Indigenous youth and another part-time non-Indigenous youth, but generally most of our youth are Indigenous. So yeah, we usually have around 10. I think this past summer we had 11 Future Food Warriors. Not all stayed for the whole time. But so yeah, they're paid workers, so they come to our program. And basically Ajashki operates for 6 hours a week in the winter. And then in June, we switched to our summer program where we do 12 hours a week. So we do Tuesday and Thursday, rather than the winter, we just do Thursday. And we pay our future food warriors the Ottawa livable wage, which is said to be $21.95 an hour. So this is our recruitment poster that we send out to Indigenous organizations to try to get our youth for our project. And as you can see in the bottom, we have a bunch of different partners that make our project possible. So thank you to those partners. All right, so now to the really fun stuff. So these are some pictures of the Ajashki garden. So yeah, we grow a bunch of different kind of food in the area that we have. There's a bunch of different shots from different angles here. I think that make it look a lot bigger than it is. But it is a fairly small area, but we do grow quite a lot in the small area. So the first picture on the left is you can see a lot of marigolds, as well as some of our we have a herb garden, a kale garden. I'm super big on kale and trying to get people to eat their kale, as well as a strawberry garden. In the picture in the top right, you can see in the foreground is a raised planter that has a herb garden, so a bunch of different kind of herbs that we use. And then in the background of it, you can see what's called our Squirrel Protector 3000, which I'll talk about in a minute. In the bottom right picture, you can see, so there's two gardens there. The one's closer to the left side is called our shade garden. The one closer to the right side is called our native garden. So basically a bunch of different native species. As well, along against the wall are our mural projects. So we did a bunch of murals this year, which I'll talk a bit about more in another slide. So yeah, these are just some of the pictures of our gardens. So one thing that's very important to us is that the Ajashki garden is registered as a heart garden. So basically, the heart gardens are gardens that you can register to do, and you create a garden that somehow honors the children who were slain at residential schools. So what we decided to do was honor the 215 children that went to the Kamloops Residential School in Kamloops, BC. And how we decided to honor them is we planted one marigold, one orange marigold specifically for each child that went to that school. So it may not look like it in the picture on the left there, but there's actually 215 marigolds planted in that area. You see all those orange flowers. Those are all marigolds, and that's how we wanted to honor these children. So if anybody is interested more about the heart gardens, we register them with the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society. That's what we did. The Ajashki Heart Garden, sorry, there's a picture on the right of myself with a sign that says "Every Child Matters." This is the Heart Garden of Ajashki. So yeah, now one of my favorite things to talk about is our squirrel protectors. So basically in 2021, when we first started, we were growing a bunch of different peppers and tomatoes and stuff, and we kept losing them to squirrels and chipmunks, like lots, like probably about like 90% of the produce we were growing, we were getting the squirrels were eating, and all the little critters that call First Jew Ottawa home were getting fed really good. So what we decided to do is build what we call the squirrel protector. So you see on the picture on the right, there's that giant cage with all the mesh around it. That's what we built. We built it with the Future Food Warriors with help of our construction coordinator. And it's been working really great to keep all the pesky little critters out of our garden. And specifically this year, we actually ate a lot of the produce that we grew in that area. So that large squirrel protector you see, we call that the Squirrel Protector 3000. And then we've also have other squirrel protectors that we call the Squirrel Protector 1000 and 2000. So basically it's a whole series of squirrel protectors that we have made. One thing that was great about the squirrel protector is, one second here. There we go. What's great about the squirrel protectors is that squirrel protector you see there, about a third of it was actually recycled from one of our Future Food Warriors home. And we're really big about, reduce, reuse, recycle. So it was great to use a bunch of recycled material to build this scroll protector. And then on the picture on the left is just a picture of a zucchini that's growing happily with no bites from any animals or anything out of it, just to kind of show you how the success of the scroll protector. So yeah, the scroll protectors were a big success for our garden. Second. Oh, my screen doesn't seem to be going to the next slide. Oh, there we go. So yeah, this next slide is what we call the grow towers. So on picture on the left, you can see me standing with a bunch of what they're actually called aeroponic growing system, which is very similar to hydroponic. But we run these year round in the building in First U, and we grow tons of produce in them. They were loaning us for free from Parkdale Food Center. And yeah, so we grow tons of fresh produce, lettuce and greens and stuff like that in these grow towers, which we eat weekly. Um, and with a lot of the fresh produce, we use it, so future food warriors can take it home. We also use it for lunches. And then we also offer that the people from First U who attend the Sunday service can come and take some fresh herbs or greens with them after the Sunday service. So these grow towers have been another big success for Ajashki. They're quite fun to work on. On the picture on the right, you can see it's just where we start our seedlings for the grow towers. And with this, we also use the same. So basically, we start them in these little pucks that we then plant into the grow towers. And then we also use the same technique to start all of our plants, garden seedlings for our vegetables outside in the spring. So yeah, that's the indoor or the winter part of our project, but it allows us to grow food all year round, which is just great. Um, so yeah, aside from the gardens, we also do a lot of plant walks. So First U in Ottawa has these really beautiful meditation gardens, and I like to teach how to grow people to grow their own food, but also what food is available in terms of like weeds or ornamental plants that you'd find in a garden. So the picture on the left there, you see me explaining to one of the future food warriors about a certain kind of tree that I'm talking about. And then the picture on the right is what we call the RE garden. So the religious exploration program for the children at First U. We partnered with them, and we've built this garden that's meant to be for the RE program, which has been another success for us. Yeah, so we grow obviously tons of food in our gardens and in the grow towers, and not all of it gets taken home or eaten for our lunches. So anytime we have extra food, we try to donate it. We used to donate to the Parkdale Food Center, which they used to have a fridge where you can just go put food, and anybody who needed food can come take from the fridge. That fridge has since been closed down, but we still try to anytime we have extra food, donate it to one of the many food centers in the Ottawa area. And then as well as we also do some, this on the picture on the right is us doing a canning workshop. So obviously preparing food and storing it away for the winter is important when you live up here in the north. So this is a canning workshop. We were doing with the future food warriors. They were taught how to can food and preserve them. I think we did a bunch of string beans, some tomatoes, some peppers. Yeah, and when we use these for our lunches, that we have every day when we're at Ajashki. And which brings me to talk about the lunch program. So when we first started at Ajashki, we noticed that one of our participants, one of the future food warriors, was coming in and they were hungry. They were coming in on an empty stomach. So this is why we thought it was important to start a lunch program and feed the participants of the program. Because obviously, if you're running a food security program and your workers are hungry, well, then you're obviously not a good food security program. So this is why we started our lunch program. So we often before it used to be the lunch was made by the future food warriors, Now we actually have a food coordinator who takes care of most of the lunches, but the Future Food Warriors do help out sometimes and often help clean up after lunch. So yeah, a picture on the right, as you can see, is a basket, one of our Future Food Warriors with a basket full of kale and what looks like, I want to say cilantro. And yeah, so we, because we have the grow towers, we try to have like a nice fresh salad almost every time we meet every week. So yeah, now I'll tell like a little bit about some of the other activities we do actually during our programming, and we try to fit in a lot of cultural activities. So what we have in the top left corner is what we call our all Anishinaabemowin words, a word wall. So every day I do an Algonquin word of the day, where I choose a word in Algonquin, and we all learn it, and then we put it up on the wall to see. As well, I don't have a picture of it, but we also have a language wall of Nuktuktuk, because we noticed last year a lot of our participants started to be from Inuit or Inuk. I believe we had 11 last year, and I believe 7 of the participants were Inuk. So this is why we also started doing a Nuktuktuk wall. So I'm also learning another Indigenous language other than my own, which has been really interesting. The picture below the word wall is of me and an elder from my community named Albert Dumont. So we try to have elders come in, so these people can connect with elders and learn from them. So he is an Algonquin elder from my community, but we also had again an Inuk elder come in, as we do have a lot of Inuk participants in our program. The picture on the right is of a cultural workshop we did. So we had another person from my community named Pinocchio Smith, who is, I want to use the word, a little bit famous for his bushcraft. He's very skilled with bushcraft, but more specifically, he's really well known for his birch bark craft. He does a lot of like canoe building and teaching people how to build canoes and things like that. And so this workshop that you can see us doing is all of us building birch bark baskets, which would have been very important in food things for Algonquin people back in the day. This is how we picked all of our berries and things like that. Yeah, we try to fit in as much cultural workshops as we can. We've had people come in and do things like beading and things like that. So yeah, now I'll talk a bit about our art projects. So we do have a lot of artists who are Future Food Warriors in our program. So it's worked out well. So in the very bottom picture there, you can kind of see a wide shot of all our murals. So we did these murals just this past summer, and they were a huge success. So we had an Ojibwe artist come in to help design them. But what she did is we all had a brainstorm together of what should be on the murals. So everybody at Ajashki, plus even some volunteers and visitors, all brainstormed what we could put on the murals. And then our Ojibwe artist, Stephanie Babbage, came in and she actually designed all the murals. And then once we had the designs down, then she came in and she and the Future Food Warriors actually painted the murals. So she was kind of leading it, but all the Future Food Warriors helped to paint the murals, which under her supervision. And yeah, they worked out great. These murals have been a huge success for Ajashki. We've even got a bit of media coverage from them, which has been great. So yeah, the murals were worked out great. There's even talks of possibly putting them inside in the First Unitarian in Ottawa in the worship hall, because people enjoy them so much. So that's been really great. The picture you can see on the right is of our sign for our garden. So this sign is always at the beginning of our garden, but that was designed and painted from one of our Future Food Warriors. So yeah, we have a lot of artists in our midst, and we really try to any talent that the Future Food Warriors have, we really try to help them and promote their talents with stuff that we do in our programming at Ajashki. Yeah, this is you can't really see, but my favorite one is the one that's above the water barrels that you can see in the left-hand corner. It's of a chipmunk with a tomato in its mouth. And that kind of explaining the history of Ajashki and why we ended up making the scroll protectors, because we were losing a lot of our produce to squirrels. Yeah, so that's a little bit about our art projects. And now I'll talk a bit about the makerspace. Oh, what's happening there? So in our makerspace is basically we decided so we've been having an issue. Ajashki is totally funded by donations and grant writing. And we're always been a little bit ahead of to stay on top of it. But if we're at a point right now where we're writing so much grants and it's kind of been pretty taxing on a lot of our volunteers. So we decided to make the makerspace where we can start making our earning our own funds to run our Ajashki program. And the goal is eventually we would like to become a social enterprise. So with that, some of the first things we made at Ajashki are some of in the pictures that you can see here. And so yeah, the first things we made are decorative holiday baskets. So me and the Future Food Warriors made a bunch of these. And they were instant hits. We took a day to make them, and I think we sold over $400 worth of these holiday baskets just before the holiday season. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning of our journey of our makerspace. And so the Future Food Warriors and myself are learning how to knit and weave and things like that. And the goal is to make products that we can sell to raise funds for Ajashki. So that's just beginning this year, but we're hoping that in a few years' time we'll be a social enterprise that's self-sustainable. With Ajashki, we also like to do occasionally do field trips. So you see on the left there's one of our Future Food Warriors holding a chicken. This was taken. The photo was taken at my farm. So we did a couple or two trips or one trip really to my farm, and all the Future Food Warriors really enjoyed. I have 25 chickens at my farm, and all the Future Food Warriors really enjoyed. Yeah, mingling with my chickens. So that was a really good day. On the right, you can see our whole crew with myself, the Future Food Warriors, and some of our volunteers. We went to a field trip to get a name of a parkway change in Ottawa, which has been success. It's now called the CUSJ Parkway. So we were pretty happy with that. So yeah, we are also a climate change program. So I'll also like to teach about climate change. Specifically, I teach a lot about how agriculture affects climate change and how climate change will affect agriculture. So in the picture on the left, you can see one of our Future Food Warriors planting a tree, because obviously, climate change, planting trees is obviously beneficial. So yeah, I taught them how to plant some trees. In the top right, you can see a garden bed in the scroll protector. And this is what's called a hugel culture, which is basically a style of garden bed where you put down logs and sticks and leaves and make these giant layers that create this garden bed, and eventually you put soil over top. And these kind of garden beds are supposed to be a lot more drought tolerant because as you water them, the logs and sticks underneath get full of moisture, and they actually can provide moisture to plants during times of drought. So when we talk about climate change and growing food in the world of climate change, these are some kind of techniques that will be very beneficial to us. And then in the bottom right corner, you can't really see it very well, but in the back of the squirrel protector, there's a bunch of black bins, and they're compost bins. We take compost from one of the food centers nearby so that they don't have to pay to get rid of it. And we turn it into compost in our garden so we can use it as fertilizer. Composting is definitely very important when it comes to reducing waste and reducing emissions. So we teach a lot about the composting as well. Yeah, so I am a paid employee of Ajashki, and then all the Future Food Warriors are also paid. But Ajashki really runs by all the volunteers who kindly give their time to make Ajashki the success that it is. So in the picture on the left, you can see some of our volunteers posing with myself and a Future Food Warrior and the Ajashki Heart Garden sign. And then on the right, you can see our construction coordinator hanging up one of our murals with one of our huge food warriors. So we have a fairly decent sized group of volunteers, and they are all have kind of their own role. So we have one Sharon Bowen, whose coordinator role is outreach. We have one volunteer who is a food coordinator. One volunteer is a makerspace coordinator, a financial coordinator, a construction coordinator, and so on. And it's really with these volunteers that Ajashki is really able to run and do what we do. So big thank you if any of them are on. Big thank you to you. And then yeah, so we also do a lot of events at Ajashki. Well, not a lot of events, but occasionally do events at Ajashki. The big one being our end of the year harvest celebration. And it was quite a big success this year, as we also did our harvest celebration was also our mural unveiling. So we invited all of our funders and anybody who's ever helped out or volunteered or partnered with Ajashki. We invited them all for our end of the year, which was in October. And it was a huge success. We had an elder come in from my community again, and we did a mural unveiling. And yeah, we had a lot of good feedback about our murals and such. So that was a really nice event. In the top right corner, we also did a solstice party where we invited all of the volunteers and plus the people from First U who donate to our program, just for a little solstice party, which was also really nice. And we had these bison burgers that we made. Oh, they were so good. And then in the bottom right corner is a picture of two of our future food warriors doing a song, an indigenous song for one of our harvest celebrations back, I think, not last year, but the year before. Yeah, that's basically Ajashki in a nutshell. I could probably talk a lot more about it, but I decided to end with these two pictures as one. The first picture on the left is of us in our first year of production. And then the picture on the right is about halfway through this year. So just kind of show you, give a little growth about how much Ajashki has grown over the years. So yeah, thank you very much for watching my presentation.
Thank you, Kayoki. Can you say a little bit more about the other project that is happening on the unceded land that has gone back out, and you could stop
Yes,
sharing.
certainly. Yeah, so I just have another quick 3 points that I'll just go over. And the big one being the affordable housing project between First U and the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services. So when talking about reconciliation, there are many ways someone or organization can engage or take action. And in my opinion, one of the greatest things you could do is giving the land back. So something that First U is doing, they're partnered with the Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services, or the OHHS, and they're basically doing a project where they're on the campus of First U, where they're gonna build an affordable housing project that's going to be for low-income Indigenous people in the Ottawa area. The space will be used for the building is being given or leased free of charge. I'm not exactly sure how that's working, but it's being free of charge to the OHS in the spirit of reconciliation. This initiative is also helping to tackle the issue of affordable housing, which is basically an issue, I think, everywhere in Canada these days. And when the first initial meeting happened between First U and the OAHS, I was invited to it, and I spoke briefly about the Ajashki project. I think the people there were really happy to see that First U already had a reconciliation project in place. And I think they were very excited when we told them that it was a youth employment program, because when this affordable housing project goes up, they're going to have youth that they're looking for programs and employment for. So they were really happy to talk about that with us. I'm not heavily involved with that, so that's about as much as I know. But what I will say is this project initiative is a great example of the land back movement. And for anyone who doesn't know what the land back movement is about, getting Indigenous land back into the hands of Indigenous people, respecting the rights of Indigenous people, and respecting their right to decide what happens in the territory around land and water. There are many different battles for land back that are being fought all across Turtle Island, including a big one with 6 nations against condo developers in Caledonia, Ontario, as well as just recently here in Algonquin territory. They are planning to build a nuclear waste storage site along the Ottawa River, or the Kitchissippi. That puts everybody, not just Indigenous people, in and around the Ottawa area at risk of like radiation pollution. So land back doesn't only benefit Indigenous people, but everyone who is at risk of these devastation that these projects that will bring to these areas, including those who have no voice, like the animals and plants and such. One last quick point, I'll really just go over quick, is something that's not really talked about very much yet, but I think it's starting to become a bigger issue, and that's the issue of Indigenous identity fraud. So it's kind of just recently come to light with the whole Buffy St. Marie controversy. But basically, as many non-Indigenous peoples or people of little ancestry or ties to Indigenous nations are taking up spaces and platforms and opportunities meant for Indigenous people. Some people are passing their art as Indigenous art and using that platform to sell their art. And some are going as far as claiming to be elders or knowledge keepers, or even spiritual leaders. And sometimes these people have never even learned proper protocols or teaching. In a lot of Indigenous cultures, protocols and teachings are very important. So I just want to touch on that real quick. I advise people, if you're not working directly with an Indigenous community, to just do your research on an organization before committing to something with them. But yeah, if you want any more information on Indigenous identity fraud, there's a website called ghostwarriorsociety.com. And they do have a lot of peoples and organizations on there that are kind of dealing with this issue. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And I'm glad for having me to speak, or that means thank you in my language. Thank you for having me speak and present here today.
Well, thank you for speaking to us and getting us a bit more informed. And I would like to initiate the question and answer session. So I see Gilbert. Please, Gilbert, take it away.
What were the yellow lines? Do they bring water to the plants? Because you said you're basically using the gardens today, especially that little pod, the pods you get from Parkdale. How do you irrigate them?
Yeah, so in the bottom of them is a giant bin that's full of water. It holds about 30 gallons. And then we put a pump down there. And in the middle of a tower is a pipe that goes all the way to the top. And so we put a timer on, and every hour the pump turns on for 15 minutes and sends the water to the top. And then the water slowly leaks down and irrigates the plants. And you also put the nutrient solution into the water, and that's how they also get the nutrients to grow as well.
But you do have an automatic watering system for the gardens that you saw in the pictures, because it's only twice during the week that you have the volunteers.
Yeah. So yeah, we usually hopefully get volunteers to water our outside gardens when we're not around. But generally we water on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we try to get somebody to water our gardens on the weekend. We also pray for rain, as every farmer does. But yeah, we usually rely on volunteers to water our gardens when we're not around.
And do you use any raised gardens? In other words, the box garden movement, do you know about that?
Yeah,
The
we
box
do.
garden movement is very good for seniors because they just have to reach over and they don't have to bend down so much. So I'm just wondering if that's been something in your sites.
Yeah, I try to teach it like many different ways how to make a garden. So we actually have like a few different styles of garden bed within our small garden. And we also do a lot of reusing old pieces of whatever kind of wood. So we actually have some of our raised gardens have just been like old pieces of wood that have been donated. But we have our tallest garden bed is maybe like 2 feet high, so we don't have any like super high raised ones. Luckily for us, where it's youth who do all the work on it, so their backs aren't as big of an issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Gilbert. Then Anna?
Thanks. I'm wondering, the future food warriors, are they local to the area that First U of Ottawa and this garden are placed, or are they from outside? And how do they get there? Are they basically bussed in, or what's the situation there?
So most of them actually live fairly close to First U in Ottawa. So some of them are very local to that specific part of Ottawa. There's a couple of them that maybe come from like more outskirts of Ottawa and stuff. But we did at some point realize like transportation was a bit of an issue for some of them. So we actually got more volunteers, Andrew and Mariella, who were kind enough to actually drive a lot of them in. So the ones who live far out, they bus in themselves, but some of the other ones are picked up by our volunteers in the morning, and it's the transportation really made the attendance.
Do you allow people to repeat year after year, or is it come in for your learning and then go out and be a food warrior?
The original plan was to get them to come in and do 1 year to become a food warrior, but now we actually have some who have been with us the whole time, who are really into Ajashki and what we do. So yeah, we have some who return every year, but then we have some who you can leave to go to school in the fall and stuff. So there's some who return every year, and then there's a couple new ones every spring as well.
I have another question that's probably similar. What geographic area do the future warriors come from?
Okay, so yeah, that's a good question. So we're a very blended blended family, I guess you could say, at Ajashki. But so we have a lot of Inuk participants. Most of them who kind of grew up in the urban Ottawa setting, who were kind of somewhat detached from their communities back up north. But we've also had Crees, some Cree people, two different types of Cree people come in. We had a Mohawk person. We had an Ojibwe person, a Métis person. So a lot of our future food warriors come from many different nations across Canada. So we're pretty diverse.
Oh, that's impressive. I have another thing in the chat was more thank you. Somebody had to leave, but they want to thank CUSJ and especially Kayoki Whiteduck for his wonderful presentation of a very important, inspiring project, and looking forward to do more research on it. So that's just to let you know. Any more questions, please? I think the presentation was quite sufficient.
Glad to hear that.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I am very impressed with it too. I'm curious because we have a bit of an animal rights section in our social justice. Are there any vegetarians among you?
No, there is not.
No, okay, I was just curious. I know there are some First Nations vegetarians around, but there are not many of them.
Yeah, I know like one or two in my community, so they're not
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I see more questions. Gary, and you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just wondering about your tea that you grow.
Yep.
And where you sell it.
Um,
And just one other part, is it more a herbal type of tea that for like a medicine?
yeah, so yeah, my tea is called KOT, and I have website that maybe I can put it in the chat or something, called www.midigomen.ca. But yeah, all my teas are herbal teas. They're all stuff that I grow on my farm, or stuff that I pick here in Algonquin territory, up in the bush. So they're all either native plants or plants that I grow on my farm. But they're all herbal tea. You can't too cold to grow actual tea, at least in the, I think there's one place that does it in the west and near Victoria, if I'm correct, but here in the east it's too cold for that.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you. I see Gilbert has another question or remark.
Yeah, you're one of the rare farmers that know the how the farming affects climate change, but uh, uh, how have you used like the book Grading Sweetgrass in your teachings about learning about how plants grow and stuff like that, either in the RE program or in the in teaching youth about the relationship of scientific concepts of how indigenous science is actually is in evolution, constant evolution, just like Western science.
Yeah, I actually haven't read that book of Radiant Sweetgrass, but I do kind of do my teachings about like climate, the environment, and our food systems from both from both worlds. I like from a settler science kind of point of view. I teach a lot about that, but I'll also talk things about like the way the elders kind of speak to me about or people, the people who know a lot about the earth, who I've learned from in my community, how they would speak to me. So I do also a kind of a indigenous, kind of more holistic to approach when talking about like how the environment is affected, especially when it comes to agriculture. I'm definitely really big on saving pollinators. That's one of my big things. So I do a lot of teaching just about that, and just about biodiversity loss is an issue. No matter which way you look at it, it's both bad from a science point and a holistic point. So I do teach a lot about that.
Hey, thank you. Then we have Jim.
Yeah, thank you. I saw all those marigolds there, but I didn't see them in the garden. What do you do, or how do you use them?
Oh, so we just have like a few lines where because we have to plant 215 in a very small space. So we have one area where we fit as much as we can in, and then we plant the marigolds throughout our vegetable gardens, because they're also a companion plant to a lot of vegetables, and they help keep away things like cabbage moths and other unwanted pests. So we have a lot of other marigolds kind of mixed in with our vegetables as well.
Anna has her hand up.
Yeah, Anna, sorry.
Thanks. It's a little two tangential questions. The affordable housing part do you know if First U is actually separating that land from their property, and that the title to that property will be given, or is it like this garden project, something that's happening on land that is owned by First Unitarian? And the other question is, you mentioned the Ottawa living wage, and I'm wondering, how was that determined?
Okay, so yeah, the first part is that I'm pretty sure it's going to be on First You own land, but I'm not heavily involved with that project, so I'm not 100% sure. But I believe they're kind of just it's not going to be owned by Aboriginal or Ontario Aboriginal Housing Services, but I can't say for sure because I'm not totally involved. The Ottawa livable wage is calculated by I'm not sure, somewhere in the city of Ottawa, where they do a way to calculate how you can afford food, rent, and a decent living of by participating in, I don't know, capitalism and arts and culture and stuff like that. So I'm not exactly sure exactly who calculates it, but there's definitely somebody in Ottawa, and I think in most cities, who calculate the amount of money needed to earn to live in that city comfortably.
Okay, thanks. And I'm really impressed with the project that you're doing. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Gary, would you know more about the situation of the unceded land going maybe back into the hands of First Nations, or is it still going to be with First UU, or can you find out and report on it to us?
I guess I can contact someone. I don't know. I don't remember any discussions about the land being given back, literally.
Okay.
Or I guess it's not so much lands about the land being given back as much as the ownership of the land being given back.
Right. Yeah, I was on the impression that there was some land back situation there, but so I'm a bit disappointed. But anyway, um, let's go on, continue with Bill.
Hi, Kayoki. I'm really pleased to see your projects so successful. You made a presentation to our fellowship earlier this year, and I'm glad to see you're going ahead this year. And I'm wondering if you're thinking of expansion anywhere. I'm thinking particularly of, for example, some of the allotment gardens around Ottawa, or into some of the community centers or apartment buildings that don't have garden plots, and some do, I know, but not very many. Or perhaps even more important, whether you're thinking about going into some of the First Nations reserves around the Ottawa area, and how are they doing in terms of farming? Are they sort of a fruitful area for expansion, do you think?
This is a good question. So we did kind of explore because we kind of maxed out our space in the back of First U in Ottawa. So we kind of did explore where we might be able to go to, grow some more food. We even considered like yard sharing. But as of right now, we don't have any plans for this upcoming season of expanding our garden, except we are doing a little bit more of an area in the back of First U for an Inuit specific garden. As well as there's also a plot of land in the back of First U that's NCC property, but we're hoping eventually to be able to access that and start making like a native garden or a medicinal garden or even a food forest in that area, because it's about like an acre right there. And it's right in the back of our garden. It's just a fence that separates them. So that's something that we're looking forward to hopefully in the coming years, once we can negotiate that with the National Capital Commission. And then a lot of the reserves near Ottawa, our communities are quite far away, like an hour and a half. So no, I don't. We don't have any plans to go to the community to start. I know in my community in Kittigan-Zibi, which is about an hour and a half north of Ottawa, they had started a community garden.
Good.
I'm hoping that they take off, and I do a little bit of volunteering here and there in that garden as well when I can.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kijoki. Thank you, Bill. Well, seeing no more hands up, let me check the chat. I don't see anything more there either. Then I would like to wholeheartedly, warmheartedly thank Kijoki for his presentation, inspiring and very uplifting and so beautiful. So thank you for speaking to us, and then I would like to end this this presentation and this meeting with extinguishing the chalice, and with the words, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has," by Margaret Mead. And thank you all for coming. I'm very glad to see you all. And then I would like to share one more screen with some source material. So some resources. So First Unitarian Ottawa.ca/Ajashki Garden Project HTML for more info. We will put that in our newsletter, which is the Just News Express, which you can get on our website is CUSJ.org. And if you go to Just News, it's you don't even have to put it there. You just go to the menu and you will see Just News, and you can subscribe. Most of you are probably subscribed already, but spread the word, because you can always use more people to come to these things, and to make our organization strong again. And there is a discussion forum, and it is the CUSJ forum, and you can ask to be on it by mailing to president@cusj.org or to cusjmedia@gmail.com, which is the other media email. And if you want to see, it's probably going to take me, because I have to edit it and then put it on YouTube, and everything takes time. So it takes me about a week to do that, in between other things I do. So it will be up probably next week sometime on the channel called CUSJ Media. And so if you want to go to YouTube directly, you go to youtube.com/@CUSJ Media, and you will see all the previous meetings we had, presentations we had, and very interesting. And then Facebook, we have a group that is called CUSJCA. So please thank you, and work for justice and compassion, and stay safe. So thank you for coming, and I will end the meeting now. Thank you very much. Bye now.